when we were helping to get the Jimmy Stewart Museum up and running. And Tim Harley, you remember this, I'm sure. The radio station was involved in, WDAD actually was involved in putting together some of the sound presentations for the opening of the Jimmy Stewart Museum.
Well, that would actually predate my time.
Oh, yeah?
Todd. Although I've been here 15 years, Carson's history, as you know, goes right back to the inception.
Yeah. And just putting together all of that sound and helping with that was such a privilege. And I don't know that that's the first time I ever came across this Carson Greene fella or not. I think I probably had met him a few years before then. But it was memorable, and it's been a memorable run as a member of the board of directors. And Tim, that's why you're here today.
That's exactly right, Todd. Carson has served as a founding member. He's served as an officer and president on several occasions. And from my 15 years of experience, there's no one more committed to our cause than Carson. He's always been there when needed and just there for support. And this year Carson goes off the board, and the board has decided in its wisdom to name Carson Chairman Emeritus, and we're just thrilled with that.
Absolutely. And Carson, I know how that must make you feel, besides old.
Yes, we used the abacus when I was growing up, but it is an honor, and I just don't know what to say as far as the response to that, except to say that it's been a pleasure being involved with this museum for the past over 23 years. We started actually a few years before 1995 working on this, and you have to understand, I'm a country boy from southern West Virginia, coal mining areas. And when I was a kid, in 1960, I was working at an airport, learning to fly airplanes. I remember seeing the movie Spirit of St. Louis, which came out in 1957. Mm-hmm. I remember Jimmy Stewart, of course, in that movie, and I thought, wow, gosh, he's a hero. He's flying these airplanes. I'm trying to learn to fly. Do you think that in 1960 I ever thought that I would meet and be involved with the star, Jimmy Stewart? I had no idea.
Yeah.
But because of, I guess, God's plan, I've arrived here in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and gotten to know the family fairly well. And others, like the Nick Clooney and Nina Clooney, not trying to drop names, but for someone who grew up where I grew up, the chances of that happening might be 10 billion to 1, because there's no way, no pathway that I could get here except through the grace of God.
Well,
and I give him credit for that.
Go ahead and drop the names, Carson, because it's been a great run for you, and you've had the opportunity to escort people, celebrities coming in, to actually visit them. Yeah. I'm sure that it's just been a thrill for you to meet some of these folks.
Todd, I just want to say that I completely understand what Carson is saying about the personal privilege that he's had in meeting these people, but Carson, through his role on the board, has also made it possible for many of our local folks to meet stars through our Harvey and George Bailey programs.
Yeah.
So his work has been very instrumental in keeping that activity and keeping stars coming to Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the stars fall on Indiana.
Yes, it's interesting. You get to know some of these people, and you find out that they are real people. Mm-hmm. For example, not to drop names again, but when Judy Stewart was here recently, Judy spent some time in our home, and we sat down and talked about things, not about Hollywood or anything like that. Her dad would come up now and then, but she would look out off the porch and say, "This is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that bird. Listen to that bird." I mean, you find out these people are just normal people. And Rich Little, we become very close friends with Rich. Mm-hmm. He's just a prince of a person, you know. And again, for Carson Greene from Oak Hill, West Virginia, by the way, which is a place where Hank Williams happened to pass away. That's our claim to fame down there. You know, for me to meet these people, it's been a miracle. Yeah. And I want you to know also that I'm not retiring because of any health reasons. I'm healthy as a horse. He calls me Silverback now and then. I don't know what that means, but I'm retiring because I just feel like we have the staff there with Tim's leadership and his helpers and the board members. We have a board and staff second to none. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm not needed here anymore. I think it'll continue and continue and continue. Although I will be involved, I guess, as Director Emeritus, I get to receive copies of minutes, things like that. But I guess the point is there's a time for everything. And now's the time for me to step back. And I've been blessed for many, many years in this community. I've been on different boards, hospital board 13 years and chairman 5 years. And I've had the experiences I would never had any place else. And this town has been good to me. The museum's been good to me. And I would also like to say, if I may, we're always thanking people in our community, which we should do. Mm-hmm. We thank people for their help and donations. But I like for folks to also think about this. Museum needs some thanks. People need to thank the museum and thank the staff and thank the board members and thank the stewards, because this museum, although sometimes we don't have the attendance at our events that we should have, this thing would be such a great project or great museum any place else. I mean, can you imagine this museum somewhere near New York or Pittsburgh or places like that? But Jimmy's family chose Indiana, Pennsylvania. And I think our people who like Jimmy and know about Jimmy should know that. And one reason I got involved in the museum is, like I say, I was flying airplanes and Jimmy Stewart and all that sort of thing. His character and his values, and not criticizing all movies we have today, but the movies aren't the same. No. And so we have to keep his legacy alive. Who worked in those movies, because so many actors and actresses, sometimes their values aren't the same as Jimmy Stewart. And we've got to keep this here and keep it out there for the future generations that come after us. But I don't know if you have any more questions, but there's some funny stories I could tell you about some of the behind-the-scene things that happened to us.
I want to get to one or two of those before we're out of here, but I want to give Tim Harley the chance to tell folks that it's not just the glamour events, the glitz. It's hard keeping a museum open in these times, and it takes solid, strong leadership, and he's one of the main cogs in that.
That's exactly the point, Todd. We're justifiably proud to have kept those doors open 23 years plus, when greater museums, larger museums with bigger budgets, though not greater stars, have failed. So our commitment to Mr. Stewart's legacy and to the community have been fulfilled through people like Carson sticking by us. We had lean times, as you know. It's a challenge. We feel strongly about our mission, strongly about the importance and viability of Mr. Stewart as a legacy that's worthwhile. Mm-hmm. But you probably, among all people sitting here, have seen that our charter business has really diminished. This has an effect on our bottom line. So it's a challenge to keep the museum open. Mm-hmm. It's something we want to do for Mr. Stewart's legacy and for the community. And it's been done up to this point because of the selfless work. And it's just plain work that people like Carson have done.
I'm sure Denise Liggett would second everything that you just said, and so many others in the Indiana community. People come here. It's a destination. And hopefully the improving economy is going to help the Jimmy Stewart Museum along with everybody else. All right, Carson, let's drop some fun stuff on folks here today. What are some of those behind-the-scenes stories, things that happen that nobody knows about until just this moment when you reveal them publicly?
Well, there's quite a few of those, but I remember our first actress was June Allison.
Oh, yeah.
So we went down to Pittsburgh to pick up June and her husband, and we had dinner at a restaurant up on the hill there, and we were having dinner, and June is sitting beside of me, and she said, I need to go to the restroom. Could you show me where the restroom is? Of course, I'm in awe. Here's June Allison sitting here, my first actress I ever met like that. And I'm sure, yes, ma'am, you follow me, and I'll take you right down to the restroom. So I felt honored to be able to do that. So I walk her down and point out the restrooms. There are 3 men and 3 ladies there talking. And so when June came by, they sort of looked at her. Then she went in, and I'm standing there, and one of the ladies came over to me and said, "Is that June Allison?" I said, "Yes, it is." Of course, I was proud because I knew June Allison. But anyway, so she went back, and she started talking with the other ladies and their husbands. Suddenly, all 3 ladies go into the bathroom together. And June's in there like 5 minutes. They don't come out for 5 minutes. And the men are looking around like, what's going on here? Where are they? So the ladies come out. Then June comes out, and she looks at me, and she says, "Gosh, I can't believe it. The first time I was asked for an autograph in the potty." And that's what she said. I started laughing, and they heard this. They started laughing, but she was just a sweet, sweet lady. I did want to mention one thing. I know your time is limited here before we leave. A few years ago, I was in a car with Judy and Kelly Stewart. We were talking about flying, and I told them about my little bit of flying I did because her dad was a pilot and that sort of thing. So they didn't say anything about it, and about a week later, I get this envelope.
You're holding it up here.
Okay. It says it's from Kelly Stewart. Now, what is this thing? What we got here? So I open it up, and here is this propeller, golden propeller tie clasp. And I had a nice letter written to me saying, "Carson, the family wanted you to have this. This belonged to Dad. Must have been the only one he had. It's the only one we could find." That's what they told me.
Wow.
And so we want you to have this for our appreciation for what you've done for the museum. So I start looking at this, and on Johnny Carson's show, when he was here in 1983, I've got pictures of that, he had this tie clasp on. And he wore it. This was given to him by Leland Hayward in 1935. And Leland was a producer of South Pacific, Spirit St. Louis. 1935, when Jimmy received his private pilot license. That's the history behind this. I have all this documented. I mean, I have to tell you, tears came to my eyes. I mean, to give me something like this. So this is very precious, and one of these days I'm sure it'll get back to the museum. But I'm so proud of this. And so that really touched me. And all the 23 years I've been involved is worth every second. Every second.
I'll give you $1 for it.
It will not be on eBay, so don't look.
Closing moments, Carson, of course. You're not going anywhere. We're going to have you around. We're going to call on you from time to time to come in and share some memories of this or that or the other thing that you might be involved in. Tim, you get the final word today. What has Carson Greene meant to be a member of this
you're
board?
Exactly right, because transferring someone to position of emeritus means, although they don't get to vote, they can be at every single meeting and they can express their thoughts. And so we continue to look forward to Carson's input and guidance as we've enjoyed over many years. And despite the now decreasing scaffolding, the museum is there. The building is looking fantastic, open for business. We have a great exhibit, Jimmy Stewart's Radio Days with MP3 players, if you haven't seen that. So, folks, come over and look out our new windows.
There you go. There you go. The Jimmy Stewart Museum. That's one of the things. I know, Carson, it's been big to your heart. Just a couple of seconds left. It's big to your heart to let people know that this museum isn't just for out-of-towners to come visit. It's a resource, and it's a treasure for everybody.
Well, you should see our guest list of people sign over there when they come in. You should see the names from all over the world.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. That's hopefully that a few will have towns like Indiana and Clymer and Blairsville and all of those on there, too.
We are blessed.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd.
The mission goes on for the Jimmy Stewart Museum. It is Indiana in the Morning, presented, as always, by First Commonwealth Bank.